I am back answering your questions, so let's get started. The first question comes from Karen McNutt, and that question is, you know how you show board pictures? What about one picture being a young person and one adult? That way we can see what was and what is not now. I want to show you a recent dynamic that I've realized about myself and as well as working with people one-on-one, and I'm going to take Karen's request for showing adult and child. We're going to fuse them together, and this is what I got. So this one's for you, Karen. So the most recent thing I've realized about what happened to you as a kid compared to how it could be affecting you now comes from basically the idea of how dolphins use echolocation, meaning a dolphin, I bet you never thought we'd be starting here. A dolphin sends out a sound so it can understand where it is in relation to that object or whatever it is that the sound is getting bounced off. It helps it understand its relevance, its location, and that's how it can navigate. So we do that as kids emotionally, and that can affect us as adults unless we're aware of it. So let me show this dynamic. Obviously, here's little you, and here's the adult caretaker. Now realize this doesn't have to be your parents necessarily. It could be grandparents, it could be a teacher. But what happens is, since we're very vulnerable and, as Gabor Mate says, inherently narcissistic as a kid, because we have to be narcissistic to live, we cannot meet our needs on our own, so it's all about how we can survive. And when we get our needs met, we actually can evolve and move past that narcissistic phase. So when you are relating to yourself and your primary tribe, emotionally, you're sending out and basically checking in, relaying it through the parent so you can get feedback. Are you safe? Are you okay? Do you fit? Because if you don't fit early on and your sense of survival depends on fitting in your primary tribe, your literal life depends on it. So you send out a signal this way and basically you see, okay, am I safe? Going out. So it's emotional echolocating is basically my term as of now. You don't get this, you're great. You're lovely for who you are. It's not what you do. You know, I am here emotionally available to you. I attune to you, and you get the key so that you can move on and do it yourself. If you don't get that, if a parent was busy psychologically, emotionally, physically with work, if they were caught up in other stress, if they just weren't emotionally available to you, you never receive the key to move on and evolve past this dynamic. So what does that mean? It means you're stuck in relating to yourself through other people. So this changes from your parent. It could then be your romantic partners or who you want to be romantic with. It could be your friends. It could be your boss. Basically anybody or anything you're emotionally echoing and seeing how you see yourself in order to understand yourself. But what you've got to start doing is realizing, oh, I'm relating to myself through other people. Oh, okay. I need to realize this and discontinue this, and that is what can get you out of this dynamic and into an adult dynamic, realizing that that validation comes from within, that that approval comes from within, that sense of worth comes from within, because you have to reappraise how your parent treated you or how you perceived to be valued by your parent. This is absolutely valid because it's all about how you perceived it, your personal emotional experience. So as you start to realize that you could still be relating to yourself, relating your sense of worth and your sense of value through how you were treated as from your parent as you were doing the emotional echolocating. So you're like, oh, okay, actually, this is no longer relevant. How do I feel about myself? Do I value myself? If I don't, what am I stuck on thinking that this thing, this past experience is why that I'm not worthy? Again, most likely you not feeling worthy or valuable has to do with how you were treated and how your needs were respected or not respected as a kid, or acknowledged or not acknowledged. The more you can start to understand, was my parent emotionally available? Doesn't make them a bad person, doesn't make them a bad parent. But we got to say, oh, okay, if you perceived yourself as unwanted, that is the birthplace of not feeling valuable and not feeling worthy. The more you get clear on stopping this and emotionally echolocating within yourself, the more and more empowering, the more you'll be able to move in alignment with what you're really wanting to experience. So I hope that helps, Karen. Now, the next question comes from Magda, and that question is, I'd love to know how manifesting works from a psychological standpoint. Disclaimer, I'm not a psychologist, so take this with a grain of salt. From my observation and my experience and my opinion, the way it works is essentially we have perceptional biases. That means based on how we were treated, our emotional experiences, how our needs were met or not met as a kid, we then put that like a big blanket, a big filter over our life, and so we see through those lenses. We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. So we continue to find the patterns because of those perspective biases, those perceptions we have of ourselves, how we were treated. Tailing off of what I mentioned earlier about this emotional echolocation, that we're relating to our worth through our parent. So until you make conscious what is unconscious, it will continue to dictate your life, and you'll call it fate. That's Carl Jung. So until we're clear about how we perceived ourselves as a kid, about how we were treated, about how our emotional needs were met, we will continue manifesting it, because all manifestation means is to make seen what is unseen, to make visible our beliefs we hold about ourselves. We will continue to find the energetic counterpart to recreate it until we can see it and move in a new way. That is manifesting, making seen what is unseen. Animating your inner beliefs, finding people, circumstances, situations that agree with those beliefs. Everybody is you pushed out. Everybody is your beliefs about yourself pushed out. The other thing is starting to understand the meaning you place on things, because that meaning comes from your own inner belief system. So psychologically understanding your own psychology, the different schemas, sets of perspectives that you have, you do not see things and interpret stimuli as it is. You filter it through long-term memory. So if you have a certain dynamic that keeps replaying, you have about 50 million bits of information coming into your unconscious, and 40 of those 50 million comes through your conscious mind, you're going to basically filter out everything that is not who you see yourself to be. And something completely contradicting, something that is in alignment with what you want, could be right there, and you won't see it because you'll see what you're looking for, which is to recreate the past, which is, this is who I am. I'm not good enough. I'm unwanted. I'm unworthy. Nothing works out for me. So until you recognize that belief, when you're making that belief, or that belief is popping up in a trigger, and you decide to make a new choice in that moment, and you're very clear about who you've been and who you were told to be potentially, and who you want to be, you take action daily to be in alignment with who you want to be. How would the me that I want to be do what I'm about to do? Jim Cathcart. So the more you start to just understand that you don't see the world as it is, you're seeing the world from where you've been. The more clear you get on what is unconscious, the more you can see what's truly going on, the more you can make choices that you want to make, instead of having these assumptions and having your unconscious dictate your life and then being along for the ride. Putting out all this energy and not seeing any results, because you'll always manifest from that unconscious. And until you make conscious what is unconscious, it continues to steal the show. Your unconscious always overrides your conscious desires, not because it's a big bad world, but simply because your unconscious is trying to keep you safe. You're going to have to expand into the idea that uncomfortable situations is actually what's going to get you towards what you're wanting, and it's not going to be a path of complete comfort and familiar, because if it was familiar, you would have already experienced it. So the more you understand this, the more you understand that you're wearing lenses, and you got to get clear on these lenses, let them go, and step into the new you. And that will continue to elevate. Your needs and wants can shift as you shift the way you see yourself. And what you're working on now can shift, and in the future you can work on something different. Releasing it, seeing yourself in a bigger, broader perspective, creating the capacity of yourself to receive, because it's in alignment with your self-image or self-concept. I hope that answers your question. The last question comes from Andrea Grace, and that question is, regarding law of assumption, how to explain surprise disappointments? Example, you are assured that your favorite restaurant is open. looked forward to going there, already envision what you and your guests would order. When you arrive, it's closed. Starting to understand the meaning about yourself on experiences really will shift your life and really can tell you what your assumptions really are. Assuming a restaurant to be open, what does that mean? What is the experience? What is the essence of the outcome of going with your friends to that experience? Sometimes that thing not happening could actually create something even better coming into your life. And when you're clear that it's not a restaurant and sitting down and having this food, it's an experience, and that experience is going to give you a feeling. You got to focus on that feeling. And then what assumptions do you have about yourself in order to receive that feeling? Because again, maybe the restaurant's closed. You feel disappointed, but you say, okay, that which I seek is also seeking me. That could be assumption. You drive a little bit further and you find at a park, there's a huge fair and it's all free and everything's wonderful. And that essence of outcome is actually matched at a greater expanded experience than going to the restaurant. Understanding what you're really looking for is what will help you understand assumptions. Those things that don't work out can often lead to something greater towards your experience. The more you get clear on that, the more and more you'll be able to understand that perceived limitations or blocks could actually be opening doors to something better. The commonality of all of these different questions has to do with how we're creating our own reality. Understanding that we have perceptional biases or filters that are editing what we're actually available to experience. This next video right here is going to help further break down what is creating your reality and how you can change it. So check it out. Thank you so much for all of your questions and for trusting me with them. Thank you for watching. I love y'all, and I'll see you on the next one.